It's 3 p.m. and we're back. Welcome to the third session of the PROSTEP Insight Days 2023. It's great to have you with us again, or maybe even for the first time today. Today and tomorrow we'll be looking at the solution and consulting services offered by PROSTEP AG. The overarching theme of these next 2 days is the challenges of the digital thread. We're looking forward to tackling this issue from every side. We've already had 2 sessions today. In the first, we discussed what the digital thread means for businesses, and in the second, what it means for the supply chain. Now we'd like to turn to the future and delve into the roadmap for the further development of PROSTEP's product range. This evening we'll have one last session. It starts at 5:30 p.m. and will be in English for our international guests. It's going to be a summary of everything we've covered today. We want to give our customers the opportunity to speak today, but also we'd like to hear from you. So if you have any questions during the session, just click on the comment box in the bottom right of your screen to enter your questions. To see the box, you'll have to end the full screen view, and then it should pop up. I'll be sent your questions, and at the end of this session, I'll put them to the speakers for you so that all your burning questions can be answered. If you have to miss any of the sessions over the next 2 days, or you want to share anything you hear today, don't worry. We are recording everything for you, and we will make the videos available on PROSTEP's video portal in German and also in English after the event, so you can rewatch everything then. Now let's get started. You'll remember our first speaker from the first 2 sessions, I'm sure. For those who couldn't make it, his name is Mirko Theiss. He is a member of the board of PROSTEP AG and is responsible for products and sales, among other things. I'm pleased to have him here to open this session. Over to you.
Welcome from my side to the third session, roadmap of our products. Product development is essentially important to us. We're continuously investing in development and further development of our products, OpenCLM. We started this new product line 3-4 years ago. It's now reached maturity. That's our core competence at PROSTEP integration. We're further developing that, and I promise you that we'll continue investing in future. My colleagues will guide you through the individual product groups and show you which features are now fully mature and available, particularly novelties which have come about over the last 2 years, and the roadmap for this year and beyond that. That's what I have to say. I think we could start now.
That's exactly what we'll do. We can identify an increasing number of opportunities. You might ask which opportunities? Well, the opportunities that PLM integration, migration, and collaboration offer. So we thought we'd look at what's happened over the last few years in this regard. And to do so, we have product manager Mirko Theiss here for you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bauer. Welcome from my side as well to our PROSTEP Insight Days. And we'd like to start with a small recap over the last 2 years, as already announced. We can show you now what we have achieved, what has happened in our line of products, and I'm going to start with OpenPDM. I would like to continue by saying thank you to my team. Over the last 2 years, again, we have seen excellent work from them. As we all know, the last year was very exciting. We had to address all kinds of different things and adapt constantly, and we managed to do so very well. At the beginning, what I have for you is what I presented to you to the PROSTEP Insight Days 2 years ago. In our update last year, I'd shown you our objectives for 2021. We'd achieved all of them. We delivered the features, and you were able to use them directly. And what we have marked in yellow here is what we had planned last year, what we presented last year, what we wanted to achieve. And if we now look and see what we have fulfilled, we have quite a lot of green here. Obviously, for the different PLM systems, we have the newest releases in the connectors. You can see that in the top line. The new releases for Windchill, 3DX Team Center, SAP, and other PLM systems are supported by our connectors, and we have issued 2 releases last year, 9.4 and 9.5. We have also developed new connectors. We have heard about CodeBeamer several times today, also in our Mars rover demo. That is one of our newest connectors for an ALM system, and you were able to see it live in the demos today already, and how it can be used. A new PLM system has been added, Arena PLM, the future of the cloud. That's exactly what it says here, PTC Atlas Cloud offering. Also, the OpenPDM portfolio has been expanded here, so we can have more connectors for cloud systems, and we're developing opening towards cloud, not just supporting on-premise. Technologically, we have, of course, developed further. We support Java 17 for many of you. Of course, that has to do with security and further development of the Java platform. That's an important point. So we have Java 11 and also the long-term Java releases supported for Java 17. What we have postponed because of needs that evolved over the last few years, the development of our ERP systems for SM Dynamics and Salesforce. But I can tell you, it hasn't been cancelled, it's only been postponed, so the whole thing will happen this year. Let us have a look at OpenPDM in detail now. What does the OpenPDM integration platform look like? And at the last Tech Days and Insight Days, we presented this already. Basically, there are 3 forms of OpenPDM. You can use OpenPDM to integrate systems, as we do it today as well with the Mars rover, where we have seen an engineering change between different systems which was synchronized, and that way data could be consistently copied. So you can use all of our connectors to continuously synchronize the data from our systems in your heterogeneous system landscape. Now, you are now in the situation in which you have to modernize your system landscape. That means you want to introduce new PLM system. You want to switch from one PLM system and migrate to another. That means it only makes sense when we already have the connectivity for these PLM systems to use PLM as a migration solution. And that is something that we do every day, support you to switch to the new releases, newest systems, migrate without losing your data. And you can then access your historical base in the new system. And last but not least, the suite OpenPDM Ship, which is a special form of OpenPDM for shipbuilding, turnkey solutions, particular connectors which are specifically important for shipbuilding and turnkey solutions. In combination with the classic OpenPDM connectors, of course, that's a perfect solution for any shipyard to guarantee continuity of processes. Now, let's have a look at the connectors themselves. I've got the classic puzzle chart here now. What has been added specifically since last year is this sector here, ALM. As already mentioned, we support Siemens Polarian CodeBeamer, but also Cameo or other ALM systems. All of them can be reached via our integration platform, so that a complete new domain with OpenPDM is connected, and we can say the heterogeneous digital thread with OpenPDM can be supported and enabled for you. The same is of course true for OpenPDM Ship. As already mentioned, the classic OpenPDM connectors in OpenPDM Ship and in plan building can be used in order to access the respective PLM systems. But of course, there are particular CAD systems for shipbuilding which are supported by our OpenPDM connectors. And if we look at all of this together, so that you have a clear view of things, we support a very large number of systems out of the box. That means these are systems that you can immediately connect as connectors. And as already mentioned this morning in a question, systems not mentioned here can also be addressed via the connector template. And a short outlook for the future. This year, we're mainly going to be dealing with the ERP domain. That means there are new ERP connectors. I had already mentioned we've only postponed that, not cancelled it. So we will be supporting new connectors. And last but not least, the first software as a service solution, the first integration as a service solution from OpenPDM. Together with Arena, we have developed an out-of-the-box solution so that the CLM system Jira can be coupled. That means as an Arena user, engineering changes can be set up in Jira, but you can also set up changes in Arena and can be synchronized with Jira. So your software development can consistently be done with Jira and your mechanic development, PLM development, will be done with Arena. The whole thing, once again, as integration as a service, that means the whole thing is finished. We host it for you on the AWS cloud from PROSTEP, and at the end of the day, all we have to do is configure your solutions for this system, and the processes as presented this morning can be used out of the box, ready to use right away. So the first step from OpenPDM as a service into the cloud, and I can promise you more will follow. That was a short recap of OpenPDM, what has happened over the last 2 years, and at this point I would like to give the floor back to Ms. Bauer.
Thank you very much. Those were some interesting insights. And of course, things have been happening in other areas as well. Data exchange, for example. This brings us to OpenDXM GlobalX, and we have Daniel.Wiegand here to tell us about the new developments.
Thank you very much. I will, of course, do that. Just as Mirko has now done it, I would like to look at the last 2 years since last Tech Days and demonstrate a little bit what we have done at this point. Again, I have prepared very briefly the slide which we presented for the roadmap back then. You can see the product family OpenDXM GlobalX 9394 has been released according to our normal schedule. I would like to particularly mention that since last year, we already mentioned this in the previous session, that for OpenPDM session, we use modules from the OpenPDM family. We have fulfilled this migration now from an integrated basis with OpenPDM 8 to OpenPDM 9. Before in the session, we saw that very nicely in the context of wind chill, but that's one of the major topics which we did recently with integration. Later on, as we will see it with the other products as well, we'll have a look at the future too. But now I'd like to pick up on what has changed, particularly for version 9.4, which we put on the market November last year, and the highlights. One thing I would like to show you is the gallery view, which we set up for the web client. We are very strong in mechanical design, that we convey CAD data through the system. In the previous session, we saw that when we collaborate with the supplier side, we provide data, we make the data available at this point, which can be downloaded via the web interface. That was list illustration, table, spreadsheet. With the system 9.4, we've expanded this so that we can also present preview files on the screenshots. You can get an idea of it. There's a data package which has been provided to you, and that can be linked with a preview. And there are two approaches how you can generate this preview. On the one hand, here in the data model, we've always had the info case. A user can do this when he wants to generate a preview. He can send that together with a transfer. So you can tag your self-generated preview files. There are different graphical formats we support, but also film formats. Videos can be attached, or, if desired, HTML previews, which That can be sent very nicely with the client you use for CAD data. We presented that last Tech Days very nicely. A client you can analyze whole building units with just a mouse click and send as a whole set, and it includes a feature so that on the fly you can really generate a 3D preview, an HTML preview, and that can really be connected to this process as a preview file and would enable the partner on the other side, before downloading the data, to be given a preview file. Of course, this can also be done in an automated way. We saw that in the previous session. We've got quite a powerful setup below OpenX and OpenDX. And of course, obviously from CAD files, you can derive graphical previews, and these graphical previews can be provided as info files. We have customers who are already using this. We don't depend on CAD files for this, but we do have the possibility to add this for any type of file. The data are there, and on the interface we can use this with the new version 9.4, so you have the gallery view. What we have been consistently working on for version 9.4 is services for the administrator. Control, management, administration of OpenDMX is to be continuously developed. You've heard that we have a lot of processing topics to be dealt with in OpenDX, OpenX. Partly it's administrator intensive. When it's about monitoring, there are various functions which we've incorporated in the web client. On the one hand, you can see this topic, generation of release processes as in a 4i principle. That means I want to send the file, and it's meant to be subject to a brief visual examination before the data exchange process is released, before the data is then made available to addressees outside of the company. That can be fully reflected by the web interface. We've done an awful lot in monitoring of jobs. We saw that in the previous session as well. I presented a BPF briefly there. BPF is an independent component which deals with processing processes, batch processing network. We have combined that with OpenDMX, OpenX web application so that an administrator can very easily navigate the jobs which have been created here to the processing component. And further things we have done is the illustration of these processing steps, not only for the administrator but also for the users in the interface, should be made more appealing, so that as a user you can separate processing data and sending data, so you can see what my data process status is within the system. So these are things which we've done on the administrative side. And finally, I would like to pick up on a topic which we have already mentioned in the previous session, and I had said it at the beginning. PDM integration in OpenDMX GlobalX has been totally redone. We really are on OpenPDM 9 now. We use microservice architecture. That is why I can only add to what Mirko has said already. When it's about different versions, supporting systems that we saw on his slides concerning backend systems, Windchill, Experience, SAP, CTR, or Teamcenter. There we use connectors out of the box which come from OpenPDM development to reflect the processes. This microservice architecture has made integration much easier for us. We have been able to reflect a much slimmer process for PDM integration. And in this context, and this does not depend, well, there's not a dependency that was there per se, but this entire interface has been lifted to a more modern, newer interface. You saw that we've done this wizard component again, and we have full integration in the batch processing framework, which we've slacked a bit. Those are the things that we've done over the last 2 years, and we've partly presented them today already. And for this part, I'd like to come to an end before we cast a look at the future to see what we've done or what we will be doing next 2 years for OpenDMX, OpenX.
And we'll do that soon. Thank you very much. I suggest we turn to PROSTEP's most recent project, but I can tell you one thing, it's growing rapidly. You've probably guessed I'm talking about the digital thread solution OpenCLM. And to tell us about this, we have rainer.zeifang.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer. That takes us to OpenCLM. As already said, it's a relatively new product, but rapid growth, and I would simply like to present that to you very briefly today, particularly what has happened over the last year. OpenCLM was impacted very strongly by two research projects last year, and particularly this is reflected in the product and product development. One project was a Z-level project, which has been completed end of last year, and traceability in simulation processes was the main focus, particularly across domains. And here we were dealing with things like process control and progress management. I think that you've seen that very nicely in the demo. Within this project, exchange formats for the simulation context were developed and implemented. Very specifically, you can mention simulation task metadata format, the STMD, and simulation resource metadata format, SAMD, and together with other simulation tools and simulation management software systems, we can organize respective exchange. The second project we were heavily involved in last year was the Impact project, also a research project, which deals with model-based effect analysis in product development. And within this project, SysML import was the basis for analysis of the impact. So you import this file format, and then based on this file format, links to other systems domains can be expanded. What has been seen in both projects is how important the analysis of effects is. And particularly, it's about more than just detecting direct dependencies, but also indirect dependencies. And here in OpenCLM, and last year, we have added a whole host of new analysis options. If we go to the middle of this slide, then baseline sticks out, and that really aims at audit and the audit application case to be supported better. There it's just necessary that at particular milestones, baselines can automatically be seen directly in your project status. So everything that's part of your project, everything that you have present at that point in time can be frozen, so that any time you can re-access this state and also demonstrate to the auditor that I worked according to my process, and precisely at this point in time, this is the status I was at. What we've seen earlier in this demo was Project Dashboard, and particularly how degrees of maturity can be seen in the project. You can see where your project is at the moment and what the status of your project is. We really stress usability, so we regularly carry out UR reviews. That's very important for us, so that accordingly we have the user experience which is really state-of-the-art and allows usability. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is connectivity. The question I'm sure you're asking yourselves is, what systems can I really connect with OpenCLM? In this context, we're talking about OpenCLM adapters. And our statement at this point is every system which is connected with OpenPDM 9.4, so anything that has an OpenPDM 9.4 connector can be connected in OpenCLM, and accordingly data can be linked to this system. That was a summary from OpenCLM.
Thank you. I'd suggest we look at the further development of OpenPDM in conjunction obviously with connectors, with the cloud and software as a service, and we have Mirko Theiss here to do so.
As we have just looked at the past and observed how we have developed over the last 2 years, specifically over the last 1 year, let's have a look at the near and slightly more distant future. That means years 2023, that means this year and also next year. To begin with, a piece of information for you. The release cycle of our product is going to be changed, and at this point the release cycle of OpenPDM will be changed. It will be streamlined or harmonized with OpenX release cycle. It's not only that you have digital thread in your company, we do as well. Our products are merging more and more, and it only makes sense that our releases are then ducktailed. And in a specific case for OpenPDM means that at the moment my team is just doing it, releasing 9.6 according to the old cycle, but then starting in the autumn, OpenPDM will always be released in November, close to an OpenX release. That means that release 9.7 from OpenPDM will follow in November this year, and then next year 9.8 from OpenPDM. So that also in our products you will see continuity and a thread. That does not mean that for your connectors and for your systems you have to wait for the OpenPDM release before you can get a new release for PDM for Windchill 3XD, Teamcenter or SAP. We will continuously, together with our feature packages, present the releases from the respective connectors so that as soon as a new release has been made available, you can be assured that OpenPDM will also support the system with a current connector, and the new features of the respective PLM system can also be used in your digital thread. If you look at the slide now and compare that with the slide we looked at a moment ago, then you will see that it's broken down in 3. I said before that we're moving more and more towards cloud, but that does not mean that we're leaving on-premise. We are convinced that we need both. OpenPDM will also be available on-premise in future, as you are familiar with it now, but in future we will massively invest in software as a service offer and create new solutions. And you can see this very nicely on this slide, the 3 groups. At the top you can see the connector offer for OpenPDM Integrate, OpenPDM Migrate and OpenPDM Ship, as I've just illustrated it. And then integration as a service offer and our integration platform as a service offer. What does that mean? I've illustrated that before already with Arena Jira. We have our first integration published, and I'm happy to be able to say that we already have our first customers for this solution. That means shortly after we developed this service, the whole thing is already out there, being productive, and our first customers have been served with Arena and Jira as a service. But we're going to continue that for other system couplings, and we're also going to do that for 3D Experience Cloud, as you can see on the next slide. Also, our connectors as a cloud as a service are going to be available. That means you can use our connectors to connect your PLM systems, and then in process engines and so on, all of that can be integrated in your IT environments. So whenever you need connectivity to a PDM, ALM, simulation data, or another XPLM system, you can access this service, data as a service, DAS, and have this connector operated by us. And last but not least, we also plan OpenPDM itself as an integration platform to be put on the cloud. That means OpenPDM is going to be hosted by us. Together with you, the processes, as we saw this morning, can be designed on the PROSTEP cloud. We will carry it all out, we monitor it, we operate it all for you, so that the integration of on-premise systems and cloud systems can be carried out on the OpenPDM iPath solution in your company. Looking at all of this in detail, I've already said that for this year, we're planning, particularly within Arena, new integration. We started, and this is in production with the integration according to Jira, but our new connectors for ERP systems, Microsoft Dynamics 365, also for the S/4HANA Cloud, and Sub Business by Design are going to be offered with Arena as a service, so that ERP integration for Arena at PROSTEP can be bought as a service solution, and we will operate it for you. Then we're going to continue, once we've offered this solution, the 3D Experience Cloud. We already have SAP HANA on-premise connected to the 3D Experience Cloud. That's an offer that's already available, but the whole thing will also be done for Windchill and Teamcenter. That means if you have 3D Experience Cloud and want to connect it to an existing Windchill or Teamcenter on the cloud or on-premise in your company, then in future we're going to be able to offer you integration as a service. And last but not least, this is the outlook for 2024. What do we plan to do? We want to get the entire OpenPDM as a service onto the cloud. That means the connectors are currently being put on the cloud. You can use them as a service and connect them to your systems in the cloud, but also the process server, as we saw this morning, low-code modeling of the workflows, carrying out the workflow integration can be carried out in our cloud. You will be given a portal in which you can design it. And last but not least, mapping. That will be supported low code with graphical mapping and be operated on the cloud, so that your integration use cases can be orchestrated by you and then be operated in the PROSTEP cloud. That's what we're planning for this year and next year. You can see a lot of work, a lot of innovation, so not just new PLM systems being linked, but a lot of investment in new technologies in the cloud. And we hope that that way we can touch a nerve for you, and you can accompany us on the cloud, and we can offer you just the offer you're looking for. That was my outlook for the next 2 years, and at this point, I'll hand back to the further products.
Exactly. Thank you very much. There's a lot in the pipeline and a lot we haven't discussed yet. I'd suggest we turn to the roadmap for further development in the OpenDXM product family. So here we're not just talking about OpenDXM itself, but also components and downstream processes, and Daniel.Wiegand is here to guide us through.
That's exactly how it is. I would also like to have a look at the future and present what we have planned for the next year in OpenDXM, or for the next 2 years. And just like Mirko has just done it, I would like to get back to a slide with a timeline. It's not quite as detailed as we've seen it in the OpenPDM world. That's because, well, I'm just leaning on what Mirko has just said. You can see harmonizing the release cycles between the two products is occurring. Here you can see OpenPDM integration solutions, which we want to integrate in OpenDMX OpenX. Here we're fully synchronized with the versions which we know from OpenPDM, and hand in hand with that, I haven't listed it separately here, we also have support for the systems, back-end systems support, so that the OpenPDM connectors are offered together with the respective version. We will then include that in OpenDMX OpenX product solutions for direct integration. So we have the same release cycle, and that way the further development from OpenDMX connectors can be participated in directly. For the OpenDMX core module, we will stick with the annual release cycle. 9.4 was last November, 9.5 is going to be put on the market in November this year, 9.6 2024. That's the rhythm we're going to stick with. We have approximately a quarterly rhythm for patch versions, which we're going to respond to security issues, small functional upgrades in customer projects that can be necessary again and again, that we have to offer that, and we're going to do that specifically with these patch versions. Or there might be things that we find so important that we can't wait for the final or next major version, so we're going to do that with a patch. 9402, which we have on our timeline here for March 2023, was also released last week, and the next version, OpenDMX, is going to be 9403, planned for approximately beginning of June. That is more or less our schedule for our roadmap. I would like to address a few topics on one of the slides which we have on our screen in our surroundings. OpenDMX, OpenX Core. We have batch processing framework that's being developed in our company right now. We've seen that in the film, and we're going to address OpenPDM integration. One topic that we're going to continue working on in our portfolio for OpenDXM OpenX, we have a SaaS offer for various customers, a growing number of customers. We have OpenDXM OpenX installations. Larger than Amazon, we take care of the entire service, monitoring, setting up, operation, everything that belongs to software as a service offers. Demands are continuously growing, and as we're growing at this point, how can we accelerate starting it up? How can database management be optimized? There's also automated database management. You need initial database content to cover your use cases, manage your master data. We're going to create template mechanisms which firstly are foreseen for the SaaS offer, but then of course also can offer added value in premise installations. You also have to fill database offers and keep them up to date. That's something we're going to have to deal with for the version 9.5. Further, we have round-trip scenarios, particularly in the context of OpenPDM integration. We've seen that very nicely before for Windchill scenario. You've seen that what we saw before. In the background, a whole lot has to happen. Contents will continuously further development. Requirements are continuously growing there. We want to increase the degree of automation. Our data we send to our partners and get back are to be optimized further. As you can see, a lot is based on zip packages in which CAD data are contained, which we then try to analyze with logic and import them again. We can see that metadata exchange is a much more important issue now, so that together with your partners you can exchange the accompanying information to fill automated processes. That is going to be a topic, I'm quite sure, not only for next year but also beyond that, is something we're going to have to keep in our minds, and these processes will have to continuously be improved. And the administrative side is to be improved further as well. In our portfolio, we still have our so-called customizing client, which has to be used still for certain things. We want to close this gap so that this administrative functionality can also be transferred to the web, so that we can continue following this path of continuous administration of OpenDXM and OpenX. And a further point that we have on the roadmap, optimizing concerning performance, cloud deployment, load balancing. We have continuously growing numbers of customers who have a whole lot done on OpenDXM and OpenX. Mass business with lots of versions, so load balancing, distributing our processes, regional distribution of processes has to be continuously optimized. So cloud deployment, installation, updates, all that has to be continuously optimized. These are topics we're working on in the background and will continue doing so this year. Another point, which is not really functional, important for the software, but we're in the course of, and we have already taken our first steps, in setting up a more comprehensive PROSTEP support portal. So we can provide you as a customer information on the product to give you the possibility to use this support portal, not only for DXM OpenX, but also for other products. Whenever you have feature requests, you can address that here. When you want to report bugs, all of that impacts our development all the time. We respond to your requirements as they pop up in projects, so we can respond at short notice. I would like to advertise this PROSTEP support portal at this point so that your wishes concerning products can be addressed to us that way. It's going to grow continuously, particularly the information material we're going to provide, documentation. It's going to be extended increasingly in this portal. So I'd like to mention that at this point quite specifically. And last but not least, processing is an important topic for us. Process control, process administration, working through steps. As we've seen that in the second session today, we're continuously working on this field so that ease of use and also administrators' lives can be improved. How can I monitor jobs? How can I carry out error analysis? All of these things. How can I trace the status of my jobs? At this point, we're working actively at the moment. We can see it's an elaborate product portfolio we have, and we're continuously working on that. And I'm really looking forward to be able to present how things continued next time round.
And I'm sure we'll follow up on that. Thank you for that. I think we can safely say that we've learned a lot about the further development of products at PROSTEP, but you might be wondering where OpenCLM comes in, and rainer.zeifang has the answer for you.
Okay, last, let's have a look at OpenCLM. Unfortunately, I don't have such a nice roadmap slide as Mirko and Daniel, but I can confirm that we're going to have one major release per year and one minor release. And as you were able to see in our backward-looking roadmap or recap, there are dependencies to OpenPDM, the connectors in OpenPDM, which we use an adapter, and we want to participate in improvements that can be seen for these connectors. And accordingly, the functionalities can be used here. So we're in sync. Perhaps we should think about whether we're going to use the same numbers as OpenPDM or OpenDXM GlobalX. I think that would be worth considering at least. But let me just get back to the topics that we're working on right now. Mirko and Daniel reported a lot about cloud activities, and accordingly, cloud is a very important topic for us. We want to offer OpenCLM as a cloud service so that on the one hand, you can access the cloud from prem systems, but also the other way around. And the second big important issue is, of course, that you have the suitable configurable roll and write system. And we're currently working on that so that here, accordingly, the safety and access concepts can assure that your company's needs are met. The remaining topics can be broken down into two blocks. One is the yellow block here. And if you look at the yellow block, what is it about? Essentially, it's about projects and products being analyzed efficiently throughout domains in the current status, but also in their development over time. And if we look at that in detail, then as you've seen it this morning already, the chart is in the center of this application. And that is why we need possibilities for this chart to be edited efficiently using an object action method so we can modify it. In the recap, I also spoke about baseline. And the question that arises is your project is developing over time. You have baselines for milestone 1, baselines for milestone 2, and now you want to know what has changed in the meantime. So it is important for versions of baselines to really be compared and understand what has changed in the configuration items. And the last point in the yellow block is query engine. And with this query engine, we want to create the possibility to carry out complex analyses. What does complex mean in this context? Complex means that you can take analyses from several separate analyses and carry them out together later on, so that you can really get the optimum out of your pan-domain digital thread. Then we're left with the orange blocks. It's about how legacy data can really be brought into the system. Normally, you don't start on a greenfield site, so a digital thread can be established from scratch. You typically have to work in extending or modifying products, and you have to start working with existing data. So accordingly, the question is, how do you set up a digital thread here? And first of all, what has to be mentioned is you have to think about what kind of data you're going to get out of your backend system at all. And there, adapter mapping plays a big role, so that all the relevant information that you need in your digital thread can be got into digital thread, particularly the metadata. And then the second, almost even more important aspect, how can data be got into the system? What is part of my current project? What product data do I need? From which systems do they originate? So that you can generate that as automated as possible. And then the question is, how do you link these data? And we're working on that. We're developing a link assistant which semi-automatically generates this link. And midterm, at this point, we're also thinking about using AI methods so that this digital thread can be set up from legacy data. That was it for me as an outlook for OpenCLM.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the next item on our agenda, your questions. Thank you for submitting them. So I'll pass them on to the speakers directly now. First question, how can I find out the connector release data for systems that were not shown on the slide? Who would like to answer?
I think I have to answer that one.
You can.
In connector releases and connectors, I was the one referred to all the time here, so it's quite simple. Speak to us. I quite deliberately did not put that on the slide because you've seen the great number of connectors. If I put that on this slide for each connector, then that would be very unclear. But of course, we have plans for all the other releases of the respective PLM systems. So as soon as you plan to introduce a new PLM release, introduce your new PLM system, then please speak to us and we can synchronize it accordingly, and you will get your answer. And we will tell you what date you are to expect it to be available at.
That sounds great. Thank you. I'll continue. Will only software as a service be available in OpenPDM in the future?
No, definitely not. We are of the opinion that everything is moving towards cloud, and you can tell after COVID, or during COVID even, that a whole lot was focused on the cloud. But let's not kid ourselves. We're all living in a world which has been developing this way for years. On-premise will continue to exist, and we will also make OpenPDM available on-premise. So you will have the choice. Either you operate it on-premise in your company, or we will run it for you as a service. Or perhaps in future there might be a mixture. Depending on your development towards cloud, we'll have to see what happens. But our goal is definitely not to give up on-premise.
It sounds as if everything is possible. So, yes. That's good. Great. Next question. Do I have to... Just one moment. Yes. Do I have to migrate my PLM systems to the cloud as well to be able to use the OpenPDM software as a service?
Again, the question is no at this point. That is the answer, no.
The answer there is no as well.
Is no, right. You don't have to do that. I tried to illustrate that with this cloud and this box. You cannot migrate all your systems to the cloud. We have a cloud connector, a cloud enabler, which tunnels your on-premise system and our cloud offering so that we can operate the connector, and using this secure tunnel we can communicate with your on-premise system so that you don't really have to change anything about your system apart from giving us the access to this cloud connector. That's commonly used technology, and we can help you that way. You hardly have to do anything.
That's always good. Thank you. You don't have to do anything either, because now we've come to the end of this session. Thank you for presenting these products to us today. Thank you to everyone watching for your questions and for being here. At 5:30, we'll be holding a session in English to recap the day's events. Just a brief note on the plan for tomorrow. We'll start at 10 a.m. And tomorrow we want to look at how PROSTEP can support you in redesigning your PLM architecture. At 10 a.m., PROSTEP's consultants will delve into what the challenges are in digital product development and how we can overcome them together.
So for everybody who speaks English, I can tell you that today at 5:30 our time, we're in Germany, so German local time, we're going to host our last session of the day in which we're going to summarize everything that we've been presenting today. We'd be very, very happy to have you here, or in case you know anybody who speaks English and who'd be interested in our sessions, they will be translated, they will be recorded. However, we're also going to have one in English here later on.
And apart from that, I wish you all the best and see you later on or tomorrow.